A very good morning to all the proud Indians present here. We are honored to have with us our chief guests, cherished Vice Chairperson Mrs. Anjali Jaipuria ma'am, and the very first head boy of our school, Mr. Abhinav Singh. Kindly welcome them with a huge round of applause. With a lot of respect and reverence, we have our Vice Chairperson with us who is taking the guard of honor. The markers paying respect to the chief guests are Sifa Sarang, Hiral Yadav, Vikram Pratap Singh, Ansaf Khan, Swastik Mishra and Aditya Singh. It is a special Independence Day as we include 2 girls in the score of markers.
School will give General Salute. General Salute!
Now I would like to request our Vice Chairperson, Mrs. Anjali Jaipuria, our respected Principal, Ma'am Promini Chopra, our very first head boy, Abhinav Singh, to hoist our esteemed tricolor.
Leading the parade with pride, we have our head boy Jayesh Khare and our head girl Lavanya Singh, Vice head boy Sarthak Agarwal, Vice head girl Aditi Singh. Followed by them, we have the alumni from the 1997 batch, as well as the 2022 batch.
Followed by them, we have the House of Wisdom led by House Captain Vishwesh Tiwari and Vice House Captain Akshat Raj. Let's see which house achieves the Best Squad award. With a lot of determination, resolve and harmoniously blending with the beats of the award is not out of your reach. Next we have the House of Strength, proudly being led by House Captain Divyanshi Porwal and Vice House Captain Aditya Kasautan.
Next, we have the House of Harmony led rigorously by House Captain Saksham Upadhyay and Vice House Captain Harshnan Jha.
Now we have the House of Perfection being meticulously led by House Captain Anshika Suryavansh and Vice House Captain Divya Srivastav.
Leading the squad, we have head boy Nafrajan, Ankush Kanodia and head girl Nancy Burwal. Our companions who walk along us shoulder to shoulder, we are so proud to share this journey with them. We laid the stone of consciousness along the stone laid in 1992. The seed of transformation was laid in 1992, and we now see the blooming tree which bears us fruits of the knowledge. The laying of the stone of consciousness will go down in history as a day to remember.
It is with this strong belief that our Vice Chairperson, Madam Anjali Jaipuria, leads the school into the brilliant fire of knowledge. Our beloved Vice Chairperson is deeply influenced by Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's teachings. A born leader with an exuberant and charismatic personality, she inspires us to always be the best versions of ourselves. We are extremely fortunate to celebrate this year's Independence Day with our dear Mrs. Anjali Jaipuria ma'am. She is the anchor to the ship that is Seth M.R. Jaipuria School. Her dedication and perseverance to the growth and well-being of the school is commendable and an inspiration to all of us. We welcome her on the stage with a huge round of applause.
Vande Mataram! A very warm and hearty welcome to our chief guest, Abhinav Singh, the first head boy of Seth M.R. Jaipuria School, Gomti, Nagar. And a very, very warm welcome to all our dear alumni who have flown in from far and wide to their alma mater for this very special occasion. A warm welcome to all our present students, teachers, admin staff, parents, and my dear Pramini ma'am and Asha ma'am. Today, we celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, 75 years of independence. And it is not by chance that today is Sri Aurobindo's 150th birth centenary too. Sri Aurobindo was the real soul of Indian nationalism. He was the vehicle of the voice of Mother India that electrified and stirred up the whole nation. His political action covered a period of 8 years, from 1902 to 1910. During the first half of this period, he worked from behind the scenes, preparing the beginnings of the Swadeshi movement. In the next 2 years, the historic struggle between the moderates and the nationalists. Unfortunately, the nationalists were called by their opponents extremists. And this struggle between the moderates and the nationalists changed altogether the face of Indian politics. But this fact was never brought out in your history books. After all, history is written by the victors. Mahatma Gandhi entered Indian politics in 1915, 5 years after leaders like Sri Aurobindo and Bal Gangadhar Tilak had already laid a solid foundation for the freedom movement. It was Sri Aurobindo who demanded a policy which was absolutely radical. The so-called moderate leaders of Congress were satisfied with petitions for minor reforms. They were happy with partial independence. They were happy to remain a colony of Britain so long as they get freedom to run a few organizations. They did not feel that Indians were capable enough to rule their own country. It was Sri Aurobindo who poured in his articles in Jugantar and Vande Mataram a fresh voice, a bold vision that demanded a radical policy, a radical change in the policy of the Congress. This young leader made two things very clear. First, that the Congress should stand for complete independence of India, Swaraj, not partial independence. Secondly, in this movement, masses of people should be involved centrally, instead of leaving the task only to a few liberal leaders. His articles were so fiery and so skillfully written, worded, that Lord Minto called him the most dangerous man with whom the Britishers had to deal with. Such was the power and force of Sri Aurobindo's love for Mother India at that relatively young age. When we read or hear about such great men, such great rishis, leaders and heroes, one wonders, what is it in them that infuses them with such zeal? My dear students, among the many great qualities that great men, leaders, saints, rishis have, one of the ardent aspirations that they nurture is that they constantly strive to become perfect instruments of God's will. They aspire to become nimitta matra. And how do they do it? Firstly, they ardently and sincerely walk the path of karma yoga. We have all heard the famous verse of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 47. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. You have a right to action, but only to action, never to its fruits. Let not the fruits of your works be your motive. These venerable leaders concentrate on their action, doing it from their highest consciousness, doing the actions with kushalta, with dexterity, dakshata, with skill. They know that if their actions are skillful, they will lead to union with God. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Kushal action will lead you to yoga, and yoga means unification with God. They do not concentrate on the results that will accrue out of their actions. They know perfectly well that they have a right to only action and not to the result of their action. Though their focus is not on the result, yet their motivation to do the action skillfully is not dulled. It is not lost. Why? Because they have found another motive. And that motive is that they want to do the action as an offering, as a gift to God. When the motivation becomes so sublime, the action too is done with more intensity and more love. Doesn't Sri Krishna tell Arjuna in chapter 9, verse 27 of our Bhagavad Gita, to do all actions, whether it is enjoyment or tapasya or sacrifice, all actions, Krishna says, they should be done as an offering to him. Yad karoshi yadashnasi, yad juhoshi dadasi yad tapasyasi kaunteya, tad kurushva madarpanam. And these great men and women, leaders, saints and rishis, when they start offering all their thoughts, emotions and actions to God, they start experiencing the divine force working through them, as if orchestrating all circumstances, good, bad and ugly. All circumstances, they can experience the divine hand actually orchestrating all the circumstances of their life. Then it is the divine Shakti who does the action through them, without any corruption from their mind, emotions or body. For the mind, emotions and body have been perfected. They no longer are able to corrupt the action that is flowing from the divine through them. Sri Krishna had commanded Arjuna, Nimitta Matra Bhava Savyasachin. These leaders have become karma yogins. They are not just doing any ordinary karma. Why? Because their karma, their action has become unified with God. These karma yogis become perfect instruments through whom God's will manifests effortlessly. Therefore, dear students, our aim in life must be to become perfect instruments of God's will. Thank you. Vande Mataram! Vande Mataram! Vande Mataram.
सारे एक सुर में गाते हैं वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम। प्रस्तुत है आपके समक्ष वह गीत जो हर भारतीय का हृदय शौर्य से भर देता है। राष्ट्र की जय चेतना का गान।
with a lot of poise and serenity. Her elegance is exhibited in every realm and principle. She is a role model to us all. We now invite her to the stage with a huge round of applause.
Our most revered Vice Chairperson, Mrs. Anjali Jaipuria, the first school captain, Mr. Abhinav Singh, the 1997 batch alumni, parents, teachers, and my dear children. 75 years of Indian independence. This is a great day for us. We are all fortunate to be born as Indians. So let us celebrate this day with exuberance and enthusiasm. I feel happy to see so many of you in this pandal. It is almost full. Let us look at this picture. We all know this former British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, who said, India is a mere geographical expression. It is no more a single country than the equator. He was convinced that looking at its diversity, independent India will not be able to stay together. 75 years later, we look at this picture and we see that our form of greeting is accepted by the world, and that is the British Premier you see on the screen. Now let us see what we got 75 years back. A drained and divided India, desperate to make it on its own, was born 75 years ago. It has been a stupendous journey of development, strived on at times and not so perfect. From raw materials to the gold, to the jewels and the Kohinoor diamond, the British looted it all. They deindustrialized India, but we did not stop. We rose from poverty and hunger. We rose our income through rapid industrialization and three revolutions: green, white, and blue. India opened itself to the world, globalized its economy, privatized its banks. 7 decades back, India was an import dependent country. 7 decades later, more and more companies are making in India. We did make some bad decisions, like letting go of the Security Council seat. Then there were the security challenges, like the 1948 Pakistan incursion in Kashmir, the 1962 war with China, 1999 the Kargil war, and the ongoing Ladakh standoff. But on every such occasion, India showed the world that it is capable of defending itself, capable of resisting any attempt to redraw its map. Which country does not have rough patches? So we too had our share. India's taught the world tolerance, universal acceptance, and we are the advocates of peace and anti-terrorism. Now let us look at where we are at 75. From a per capita income of rupees 230 in 1947 to 91,481 in 2021-22 is our remarkable comeback in 75 years. India opened itself to the world, globalized its economy, privatized its banks. 7 decades back, India was an import dependent country. 7 decades later, more and more companies are making in India. In 1947, communicable diseases ruled India, but we overpowered malaria, tuberculosis, and smallpox. By 2014, India declared itself polio free. Today, India's polio eradication has become a case study of healthcare all over the world. In fact, as we talk of healthcare, we are the country running the largest COVID vaccine campaign. We hardly appreciate our healthcare because it has a lot of wrongs. But looking at it from where we started, our achievements are no doubt astounding. Around the time of independence, 2000 mothers died for every 1 lakh childbirths, and now it is 103 for every 1 lakh live births. Look at the life expectancy now. It is almost 100%. This is an index of any country's development. Today, India is called the largest pharmacy which exports medicines to 200 countries. Space technology is surely a feather in our cap. India went into space 17 years after its independence. And you see how we launched our first satellite in 1963, the rocket parts being transported on bicycles and bullock carts. We've come a long way from there. Today, India is unfurling the tricolour in space to mark its 75th anniversary of independence. We were the first country outside permanent UNSC members to test a nuclear bomb, and this despite the world's attempt to block our journey. The US spied on us, but we did not stop. After all, we are Indians. हमें दिल भी जीतने आते हैं और दुश्मन के आगे सर उठा के खड़ा होना भी आता है. In 2013, India joined a handful of nations that have mounted successful missions on Mars.
So, how did India achieve all this? You may find it strange because there are many wrongs here. But if you look at your democracy, you will understand that literacy and democracy have brought about this change. Our literacy rate was a mere 12%. And from that, 75 years later, we are at 77.7%. That's our literacy rate. Isn't that remarkable? Schools, universities, medical colleges. In the country, everywhere you have Indians, and abroad too. Indians have made their mark in education. We are the biggest talent pool of the world. Teachers, parents, and my dear children, we've reached this far, but now the development has to pace up even more. So how does this happen? Think, ideate, put those ideas into practice. Parents, listen to your children. आपके पास एक्सपीरियंस है, आपके बच्चों के पास जज्बा है, उम्मीद है, उमंग है. उनका जज्बा, आपका एक्सपीरियंस और उनके विचार सबको साथ मिलाना होगा अगर भारत को आगे और आगे बढ़ना है. Teachers, give freedom to yourself, but also to your children. Be patient listeners and also gentle guides. Children, change and development happen when your ideas become a movement. So you are the ones who have to create those movements. Your history is a testimony of that. Britishers left us because we had so many satyagrahas and so many mass movements. I bow in gratitude and I pay my reverence to all the leaders before 1947 and after 1947 who have brought us to this day. Jai Hind!
Thank you, Ma'am, for your inspiring words. Due to your speech, we were able to witness the journey of our school as well as of our nation.